Hello, cousin. Welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to give foundation to the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed so already, my name is CoCo. Cousin, I am so blessed. I am so blessed and honored that you have joined me here today. If this is your first time here, welcome to the party. Enjoy the cookout. Grab a plate. Let's have a good time. Please be sure to leave a like and follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. And after this episode, go back and check out my backlog of episodes. This is, I'm on episode 20. I've talked about clearing things out. I've talked about internet questions that witches have, be they hoodoos or traditional witches or whatever. I've shared stories from my family. Like, there's so many things you can go back and listen to, and I'm sure there's something in there that you will enjoy. Okay, so June is a 5-Sunday month, and I told myself that on 5 Sundays, I would give myself a break and just talk. I would just get my microphone out, put my cat Grace Jones on my desk as my audience, and I would just chat. I've got a few things going on in my mind. There's some things I really want to talk about. I don't know. I watched my grandmother perform a removal, which was pretty cool. I don't know. I didn't talk about my spiritual work with death in the last episode. I kind of feel like that deserves its own episode. And so does the removal with grandma. Like, I feel like I can incorporate that into something more. So what do I want to talk about? Okay. Well, last episode, if you guys haven't listened, Big Sis and I were answering internet questions. It was volume 2 of Internet Witches Got Questions. Was that last episode or the one before? I don't know, but it's in the past. It's the last one I've recorded. Let's put it that way. I don't always record these in the same order that I post them. But yeah, in that episode, I had mentioned that, there are different spirits I like to work with. If you're new here, a brief snippet. I am not a Christian-based hoodoo. I'm a secular-based hoodoo. It's not that I don't believe in the Abrahamic God. I just don't follow. I had a crisis of faith, and I realized that that wasn't a space where I belonged. So, and I could not find meaning in my life. So I decided if life meant nothing, I get to decide what it means. And so I've been on this spiritual journey of figuring out what I want out of life and the guiding forces in my life. In that episode that I was talking about with Big Sis, I mentioned that the spirit of wealth is one of my guiding forces. It's always on my altar, and I'm always offering something to the spirit of wealth. Not because I'm, trying to magic my way into becoming a millionaire. I don't think that's a thing. I'm sure some of you are out here like, but the Illuminati and, whatever else and Hollywood. And, that's, I don't subscribe to that conspiracy. I do know that some people are just magnetic and are talented or are, cunning, and they're able to get money from people. Right. But I don't think that has to do with, burning babies or whatever. No, I want to have a good relationship with wealth, because I want to live in the overflow. And I feel like, all of us are trying to do that, especially with eggs costing like $2,000, right? Like, we're all trying to maintain this healthy relationship with the spirit of wealth, or whatever you call that. So lately I was perusing the interwebs, as I do, and someone was asking about a freezer spell for money. Okay, so if you don't know, a freezer spell, basically you put whatever it is that's causing you issues in the freezer. or you put it on ice and you chill it out, you cool it off, or you stop it from temporarily bothering you or causing a problem in your life. So this cousin wanted to put their bills in the freezer, give or take. And as a freezer spell, I guess that sound logic. I say often, it's not my job to tell people how to hoodoo or tell people how to witch or do magic or whatever you call yourself. That's not my job. My job is to provide foundation and information, right? Or at least that's the one I've prescribed myself. But one thing I don't think this cousin considered is that you cannot outrun your debt. The only way to outrun your debt is to die. And even after death, whoever's left has to settle up for you, right? Like, I don't know if you guys ever do your taxes, but one of the questions on the tax form in the United States is, are you filing for yourself or on behalf of someone deceased? Child, even Uncle Sam wants his money. He don't care if you in the ground or dust or whatever. Uncle Sam's like, but where's my money though? Right? So like, you cannot outrun debt. You cannot outrun bad money management. And there's no amount of freezing or whatever else that's going to movie magic poof your problems away. Like, I'm pretty open to things happening, but I know that that's not a thing. It just isn't a thing. Eventually it'll thaw and you're going to have to deal with your debt problem. Now, do with that information as you will. Then on top of, freezing their debt, which is, I guess, why this particular topic, even after I just told you I watched my grandmother do a removal or exorcism, or I've got this juicy story about how I deal with the spirit of death. The real reason why this whole money freezing thing is weighing so heavily on my mind is that on top of putting the bills in the freezer, they're putting alligator paws in their pockets and going gambling. They hitting the slots and the poker and the blackjack table and the scratch offs and whatever else. And they're spending money to do group money rituals. And they're paying workers for solo one-on-one spiritual work. And basically, like, they're spending money they don't have. I don't know about y'all. But my mama, and y'all met my mama, she's a pretty practical woman. She's spiritual but practical. She told me, never spend money you don't have in your hand. Like, don't do it. And have good credit. Right? So in those moments where you do have to spend money, I mean, those emergency, you have no choice moments where you do have to spend money that you don't have in your hand, you have the credit to back it up and a way to pay it off. Because you cannot outrun your debt. So when they're telling me that they're, well, not me personally, but when they're writing about the spiritual work and they're writing about, how much that costs, and they're writing about the poker and they're writing about whatever else, I'm sitting there staring at my phone on my toilet, flummoxed. Like, there's no other way for me to put that. I had to pull out my college words. I was flummoxed. And I think what hit me harder is the comment section. Because let me tell you, my hoodoos, my black people always got something in the comment section. It's the hottest part of any post. So they're saying things like, hey, are you married? I think your partner is blocking you up. Or stuff like, baby, you blocked up. Go out and buy 17 green candles and 25 herbs and spices and sprinkle. That should help you. And my favorite, I see that you were hexed and someone crossed up your money. I drew a card for you and you were hexed and someone crossed up your money. I tell you who crossed up their money. They crossed up their money because they're gambling and because they're giving it away, you know? Now, okay. I'm being judgmental. I know we all have our ways of working and it's personal. People want to say that hoodoo is like a monolith and we all do the same things, but that's just not true. It's not true fundamentally. It's not true in history. It's not true in modern era. We have the same tools. We work from the same, thought space, but how we go about our practices are different. Sure. And I'm not knocking anyone's mojo. I'm not belittling anyone's juju. I'm just saying that I was flummoxed and that I do not understand. Why would you spend money on spiritual work when you don't have money? Why would you, on the flip side of that, why would you charge someone who is struggling financially so that you can perform spiritual work on their finances? That don't feel right to me. And, morals in hoodoo are questionable. It's questionable and it's up to the practitioner, right? Like, I'm not going out and, drowning a black cat on a full moon and cussing it out and then waiting for the bones to come up to the top to get the bitter and sweet bone so I can put it in a mojo bag or carry it with me so I can go around unseen or whatever it is that we do with black cat bones. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to torture that animal. It doesn't seem right to me, but it was right to somebody because that's why we have black cat bones. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's, the morals are questionable, but I'm just saying charging somebody 10 cents and they don't have 2 pennies to rub together, that don't feel right to me. Not at all. Okay. So magic, particularly spiritual work, is a series of odd coincidences that are, flexed in our favor, whatever that favor is. At least that's CoCo's definition. So the other half of spiritual work, if you ask me, is having enough sense to manage the mundane and to take advantage of those odd coincidences, right? You cannot take advantage of those coincidences around your money if you're giving your money away. Because let me be clear, gambling has a slim chance of paying off regardless of the charm or the mojo in your pocket. That's not a guarantee, right? And money rituals and paying a spiritual worker to do the money ritual for you is also a gamble. If you have the spare money laying around, knock yourself out, right? Like, play the slots, enjoy whatever rituals you want to enjoy. Do it. You have the privilege to do so. But if you're already, if the spirit of luck already doesn't smile on you, why would you test it in that way? Why would you spend money that you do not have? I get why a worker would take your dime, even though you only have 2 pennies. I get why that happens because they too have to eat, but I don't know, depending on the spirit of luck and only relying on spiritual means seems like a full stop to me. It seems like something we shouldn't be doing. Maybe things will work out, but they probably won't. not and it's a gamble, because if it doesn't work out, you just spent your last 2 cents. You understand? Like, if you have the luxury, if you have the privilege to participate in the ritual or go to the spiritual worker, and losing that money is not a make or break, then I would say go for it. But if it's a make or break, what are you doing? like what are you doing? So yeah, I would hope, cousin, that we as a people learn to rely less on the spirit of luck and more on the spirit of wealth, or, whatever divine force you call upon to help you prosper and succeed. And in turn, while building that relationship with that spirit, we take accountability for what we do in our day-to-day life. When we can, where we can, because again, sometimes this comes down to privilege, and sometimes people, they, no matter what they do, they weren't born into the privilege of being able to get ahead. Like, I'm not saying that's not a thing. But I would hope that those of us who are privileged and also, work hoodoo, rely a little more on the spirit of wealth and a little less on the spirit of luck, and not give away money that we do not have. Okay, so I already talked about being down on my luck in the episode Speak Easy. It's like, I think, the 3rd episode. And I declared that I would no longer leak money, right? Like, I declared it. I stood hands to the sky on the phone with my mom. I will not leak money. And after that declaration, I talk about how there was a series of odd coincidences that happened to me, and I took full advantage of those coincidences. And, in other previous episodes, I've talked about how I tend to my relationship with the spirit of wealth. And because I've committed myself to this relationship, I've seen results. I've seen more odd coincidences. And I guess I have a different outlook on the ebbs and flow of money, But I don't think I ever talked about, like, what I did, like, to build that relationship. Okay, so the first thing I did spiritually, I looked at it spiritually. I looked into money bowls. Then I pulled together a lot of my research, and I came up with what is basically, like, at the time I considered, I should say, a large stationary mojo. Later, I would find out that it's called a spirit pot. In hoodoo or in Appalachian folk magic, these are spirit pots or spirit bowls. The Jewish folks, old school Jewish occultists, also have something similar. Now, remember, your girl, she was broke, all caps, no dollar signs, right? So, in order to make this stationary mojo, in order to make this spirit pot, I had to improvise. I found a jar. It was either recycled spaghetti jar or a recycled and old pickle jar. And I cleaned it up. And this was at the time when I was still trying to hold on to a little more of that witchy influence in my hoodoo. And I waited until the moon was full because I wanted to take full advantage of growth, as it were. And I went to the bank where I do most of my transactions, and I got me some dirt. Lucky for me, spirit of luck did smile down on me on this one. The bank I go to is neighbors with a church. And I'm not talking like a small church. I'm talking a big, mega kind of church. Dirt. Okay, so dirts from banks holds the spirit of wealth. And that spirit of wealth is created and accumulated by the coming and going of people depositing and withdrawing money. It's a physical representation of that ebb and flow that money has in our life. And the dirt of a church holds the blessings and the prayers of everyone who's ever, prayed there. I guess that what I'm trying to say is that the earth always remembers and it keeps what it's given. So, I took the dirt between, in that liminal space on the border between the bank and the church. I figured I needed as much help as I could get. Then I went into my cabinet when I got back home and I grabbed me some long grain white rice and some black eyed peas. Cause we eat that for luck on New Year's, right? And rice is a symbol of wealth. And so is black eyed peas. It's a symbol of prospering, a symbol of wealth. So I got my rice and my dirts and my black eyed peas and I sat there with my jar and as I added my stuffs, I spoke into the jar. I spoke my fears and I spoke my dreams and I spoke my needs. I cried out my anxieties and I just, I gave it over to the pot, right? I gave it to the jar. I told it what it was that I needed and allowed my breath to bring it alive. And I threw away the lid. I didn't put the lid on there because I understood, even as early as this was in my practice, understood that I cannot chain up my money. I cannot hoard it. I cannot keep it. I have to allow it to come and go freely, and I cannot live in fear that when it leaves, it will not come back to me. Now, I don't know if that's how it was supposed to go, because again, this was at the beginning of my practice and all I had was, the gathered information on why mojos and where that came from and, money bowls and other things. Like I was trying something. I was piecing it together. I had never done a traditional spirit pot before. Didn't even know that's what I was attempting to do. I did my best. Then I knew that I had to provide offering. I had to get it started. So I had some cash left over from when I went to the grocery store and I added it to the pot. And I did that every week. Loose change I found around the house or on the ground, leftover cash from the week before, I just added it to the jar as offering. I sang around the jar and I showed gratitude for what I had. And I looked toward and saw this jar as an accumulation of my wealth, not just my wealth and not losing money, letting it seep out of me anymore, but also like that if I turn my eye and my mind towards the spirit of wealth, I can accumulate it. I can, it will stay with me longer than it leaves, and which is the goal, right? I want to have money when I need the money. So that way, when I release it, I released it because I had to, because because it was, it was necessary, and I don't have to worry about whether it will come back to me because it is trained to come back with me. It enjoyed, the spirit of wealth enjoys staying with me, So I've refined my ritual now, and I'm no longer working out of a pickle jar. I have a bronze flower pot that I use. And I use this like New Testament level of Jewish technique, kind of like a demon bowl, to write the petition inside the bowl and whatever else I did. So now it's a mix of, you know, this hoodoo spirit pot, the concept, the technique of a demon bowl or a spirit bowl in Jewish tradition, but not quite. Like I adapted it, you know, to my practice. And yeah, that's the bones of the ritual. One that I still do 3-4 years later. Like I still do this ritual once a week. And the only difference now is that instead of using loose change, I don't just use loose change. I consciously pull $50 out of my account and I pay myself. I pay the spirit of wealth. And I also put money in my savings account, like, so, you know, but like I can see it. It's a physical representation of the spirit of wealth in my life. And I find that to be very important. And when it's time to empty it, because it's too much money in there or it's too many coins in there or whatever, I donate like 5 to 10% to a charity. Not necessarily in cash, but like I'll buy canned goods and drop those off at a food bank. I'll donate to my alma mater, my high school alma mater, like things like that. I'll donate the money and then use whatever cash is in there towards something I need, like I'm getting ready to move. So I will use it towards that, or I put it in my savings account to collect interest and, you know, whatever else, to join with the rest of my money. So when it spins out, it's blessed and anointed. It will come back to me. You know what I mean? So that's the spiritual. The second is the mundane. And this is what I was talking about before. Like I cannot rely just on the spiritual. Yes, this bowl literally holds money. Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's collecting money. It's a spiritual representation of wealth in my life. But if I did just that, I would just have the money in the bowl, right? Like I wouldn't be putting the practice into mundane use. So I went back to my mother's bill book technique, the one, you know, I sat with her at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning, you know, I'm eating breakfast and she's got 500 notebooks in front of her and a calculator and bills and a calendar, and she's sitting there crunching the numbers and running our household like a business. I went back to that technique, that mundane, you know, 1, 2, 3, this is how it's done technique. I kept a bill book already, but I never worked it like my mother did or like my grandmother did. But now I do. I blessed it. It's a holy text. It's next to my field journal. It's on my altar. Like it's a holy text for me. And I monitor the ways that spirit of wealth ebbs and flows in my life by keeping this bill book, by knowing when money needs to be spent, by knowing what I have, by seeing the overflow. I see it. You know, it's not just what's caught in the pot. It's also, you know, how money is coming into me and how I'm spending it out. I can see it. I can follow transaction to transaction, you know. I can see those coincidences, those spiritual, magical coincidences stack up. And I guess more importantly, I can take accountability for when I mess up. Like, why did I eat out every day last week? You know, like I can't do that. I know I can't do that. Yes, I have money. Yes, I'm in the overflow, but I have goals and I want to do good things for myself. So no, I can't eat out often like that anymore. Like I got to stop that. I got to cut that out. I could take that same money and donate it or give it to, you know, the spirit of wealth and give it to somebody who needs it, you know, with my tithing donation, or put it into better use in my life. You know what I mean? The bill book reminds me basically to make good choices. It reminds me to honor the spirit of wealth and not squander what I have. It's such a mundane thing to do, and yet it's so necessary for my spiritual work to have a profound impact in my life. Seriously. But a lot of spirit work, I guess if I could like sum it down, a lot of the spirit work that we do, money or otherwise, is done as a bypass, right? What's spiritual bypassing? Quick and dirty Google search explains it as spiritual bypassing as a defense mechanism that involves using spiritual practices to avoid facing difficult emotions, experiences, or realities. It's easier to blame or call on a spiritual thing when you need something instead of figuring out what you can do here and now in the mundane to walk in line with what's happening around you. I'm preparing to do an episode about Harriet Tubman. And in this book, I do this every time. I do it every time. I think of something from a book. I never have the book next to me. Just wait, let me get it. Hold on. Gotta get the book. Gotta find the book. Okay. Okay. I'm on page 127 of the book Harriet Tubman, Imagining a Life by Beverly Lowry. This is the passage. It says, "It is now that Harriet Tubman begins to understand the power of the gift and the responsibility they have settled upon her. The message is clear. If she asks God to kill a man, and that man is immediately struck down, then God has anointed her as a disciple. He wants her to ask for what she needs and to be prepared to receive it. But she must ask judiciously and afterward take up the cause herself, for she is on her own then, and the rest is up to her." The rest is up to her. This resonated with me so much, especially after reading that poster's comment about money and the Baileys they're doing, all the spiritual work they're doing, but they're gambling and whatever else. Like, it resonated with me so much because it's so true. Whether it's to the Abrahamic God or whatever else, you ask for what you need. And sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Like, sometimes that leap of faith is required, but you cannot leap from weak foundations, and you cannot spiritually bypass your responsibilities. Let me speak for myself. Everything I need is right here. Some of you would say, God. I would say the universe. The universe has given me everything I need to survive. I know that the future is not certain, but I can see right here and right now. And I know that I have been born into blessing. I have been born with privilege. And if I'm broke right here and right now, I need to mind my money, right? I need to respect the spirit of wealth and take some action in the mundane so that when the blessings rain down on me, that when I ask for help or I'm in need, I can soak up those blessings and prosper. So, it might not seem super spiritual to make that spirit pot with a pickle jar and dirt and my breath, my words, my faith. It may not seem holy to sit with a bill book every Friday, after I, give my offering to the spirit pot and literally look at what I spent last week, to literally look at where my money went. But we cannot rely on movie style magic. We have to be practical in our spiritual expectations. And we should not throw away or spend, I should say, what we cannot afford to spend. That's not how we respect the spirit of wealth in our lives. Gambling with a lottery ticket in your hand or an alligator's paw in your pocket does not lead to the long-term success of living in the overflow. It does not produce generational wealth. It just leads to more quick fixes. And, you're putting a lot of stock in the spirit of luck instead of wealth and prosperity. And I promise you, cousin, the spirit of luck is way more fickle than the spirit of wealth. And even still, with our faith, we must have action. We must be practical in how we move about the world. And in those moments of practicality, we can see the magic happening for us. We can see the spiritual world lining up with us, and we can walk in tandem. We can walk in sync with our spiritual requests. Okay. So you've made it to the question and answers portion of the podcast. Congrats. I'm only going to answer one question today because I feel like this spiritual chat was spurred by internet discourse already. So we'll count that as one. So this one comes from Facebook. It says, I left a man I was dealing with for a few months, help him out while he was trying to get situated. He became able to pay me back, and when it came time to pay, now he's out of sight, out of mind. I'm unbothered because I know all my money that leaves returns to me times 10. But I want him to be hit with karma. At its best, I can do some candle work on him, maybe. I feel like you do bad, no good will come to you. Okay, so I'm not here to police morals. If you want to get back at this person and you want to cross him up, go for it. I'm not going to give out work that can be used to cross someone up. I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to do that here. Maybe in another episode, I can look at historically what people did, but yeah, I'm not going to do that here. I guess, let's see. They talk about karma and all that. First of all, I will say it's great that they understand the ebb and flow of money, that money leaves and it comes back. Maybe they did some money work that their money is trained to come back times 10 or whatever. I don't know how they work. I'm just guessing. But when it comes to karma, like actual karma, and now we've talked about this before in other episodes, there's nothing you need to do. We accumulate karma as we go about life, if you believe in such a thing. We are on the wheel of samsara. We are on a wheel of suffering. And because of our merits or demerits, we accumulate points, give or take. I don't mean to trivialize, but that basically we accumulate karma as we go throughout our life. And we will see the returns of it in our next life. So a Buddhist or whoever believes in karma might say that him not paying you back is karma for what you did in your previous life. And that if you try to get back at him, you will see the karma of that in your next life. I'm not a fan of all of that. I think you mean personally actions and consequences, which is the more Western, occulty, spiritually kind of definition of karma, which is you have actions have consequence, and you would like to see the immediate consequence to his actions. So yeah, if you want to cross him up, by all means cross him up. I'm not here to police your morals on that. I do think though that if your money will come back to you, there's no need for action. I think your money coming back to you will allow you to live in the overflow, allow you to prosper and succeed. And because he does not respect the spirit of wealth, eventually he'll be down on his luck again. And here's another thing I learned from my mama. One, never give out money you expect to see back. If you expect that money back, don't lend it out. Right? Like don't lend it out, because you're going to put yourself in a bad place. And two, sometimes inaction is all it takes, because the other person will need you before you need them. And so it's enough to see the consequence of their actions. It's enough that when they come back to you, you can simply say, no, I can't help you this time, because you took advantage of me last time. So, light your candle if you want. Use the power of speech and curse him if you want. Whatever, up to you. But I'm more like my mama. I'm more like sitting in the corner and I'll wait. I'll be patient. Yeah. And not to be vindictive, not to be, cruel, but eventually when they come back looking for you or looking for someone else to help them, they will get the no. And it's not, they will need you before you need them. And that no is enough. It's full stop. If you're looking for consequences to their actions, there it is. There it is. All right. So we made it to the end of the podcast, cousin. I hope you had a good time. I had a good time. It was fun. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe wherever you are. If you are able to, please give me a 5-star review. I would appreciate it. Before we go, cousin, I want to let you know something. You deserve the world. You deserve to be blessed. You are blessed. You live in your overflow. 100%. You live in the overflow. Sometimes we don't manage our overflow the way we should, but if you're listening to this, you have privilege, you have blessing. And if you call for your privilege, if you call for your blessings, they will come to you. I'll see you guys next time.